A week after being diagnosed with bone cancer, I made an appointment for a mortician. Not only is he handsome, but I've heard his skills are exceptional. 0 negative reviews. He can make someone leave looking their most beautiful in life. I caress the hideous burn scar on my left cheek. I must leave clean and beautiful. In the next life, I won't have to have my loved ones taken away, my appearance ruined, losing everything. I called the mortician to see if I could move my appointment up. Mr. Sean, I want to move my appointment up. In return, I can give you all my savings after I die. There was silence on the other end, and no response for a long time. After the phone was hung up, Sean sent a text message. "I'm sorry, Miss Tara, I am a mute. You said to make an appointment in advance, what does that mean?" I pulled back one leg that was stepping off the rooftop and edited the message. "If I say I'm going to die today, would it be convenient for you to let me cut in line over there?" Another round of silence followed. "Sean, where are you?" "Tara, at home." "Tara, don't worry, there will be a hearse to take me to you. The wind on the rooftop is a bit strong." I look at the Instagram message I sent to Dad, Mom, my older brother, my second brother, and Clara 7 hours ago. "Can you go home for a while? I have some final words to say to you, and I won't bother you anymore." I had long been kicked out of their family group, so I could only check each one for mass sending. As expected, there wasn't a single reply. But I couldn't wait any longer. From afternoon to evening, I endured 7 hours of cold wind, without seeing a single shadow. I simply called my dad. After the ringtone played completely 3 times, it was finally answered with great mercy. "Hi, have you seen my Instagram post? Why haven't you come back yet?" On the other end of the phone, Dad's impatient voice rang out, "Tara, what on earth are you making a fuss about? You won't be happy until you break this family apart, will you?" Followed by the sound of the phone being slammed heavily onto the ground. A moment later, a gentle female voice sounded, "Tara, please stop it, okay? We just arrived abroad and are accompanying Clara to relax. When we get back, we'll bring you a small gift." Then, the phone was snatched away again. A frustrated voice came through. It was my older brother. "Tara, do you also deserve a gift? You lied about having bone cancer and even said that Clara's bone marrow matched yours, scaring her into having nightmares for several days." Clara gently spoke at the right moment. "Mom and Dad, big brother, second brother, please don't blame sister. She just wants you to care about her more, she just used the wrong method. Clearly, Clara is a few months older than me. But because she was adopted later, everyone assumes she is the younger sister." My second brother, who had been silent all along, sent me an Instagram message. "The movie based on you has been released. I want to uncover your true self and let the whole world know what garbage you've done." A sharp pain pierced my heart, and I almost dropped my phone. Do you know how expensive international phone calls are? Don't bother us if it's nothing important. "Alright, then I won't die just yet," I said softly. "I will wait for you to come back." The call was abruptly ended with a beep of anger. When I tried to call each of them back, I found that I had been blocked by all of them. I sat on the rooftop, my legs swinging in the wind. I originally wanted to jump down in front of them when the 5 of them returned. It would be thrilling. I didn't expect them to take the whole family abroad for a trip. It's still my favorite city, Rome. I guess they won't be back for a while. The wind blew, disheveling the hair that covered the left side of my face, revealing the burn scars I had carefully concealed over the years. Even though the wounds have healed now, they still left behind terrifying scars. This was when I tried hard to integrate into this family after I was abducted and Clara accidentally splashed a cup of freshly boiled water, nearly 100 degrees, on my face. As she carried it on the tea tray and stumbled in front of me, it splashed all over my left face. If I hadn't closed my eyes in time, I would have almost scalded my left eye. In my struggle with the pain, I pushed Clara away. Her hand was cut by the shards of the cup. Elder brother directly held her finger with concern. Second brother then slapped me on the unblemished side of my face. Mom and Dad locked me in the room. Without timely treatment, my left cheek was left with an indelible scar. Standing high, I could see far. I was surprised to see a car driving straight towards me. I was a bit confused. Weren't they abroad? It wasn't until the car stopped outside the yard and I saw the flashing red and blue lights that I realized what was happening. A person was the first to get out of the police car. He wore a long-sleeved white shirt tucked into black trousers, and a pair of sharply contrasting black and white eyes fixed on me. I don't know why, but I instinctively knew he was Sean. I sent him a message, and in less than half an hour, he actually called the police to find me. Just because of my words, "I'll die today." The police uncle has already set up a loudspeaker, urging me not to think too much. I quickly got up. However, due to maintaining one position for a long time, the blood in my legs was not flowing well. I stumbled and almost fell. At the same time, my waist was firmly embraced by a pair of arms. I suddenly turned around and found Sean had come up behind me without me noticing. The next moment, I was pulled back with great force and fell into his arms. The police officer beside us earnestly advised, "You young couple shouldn't get so emotional and think about life and death, wasting police resources." I nodded repeatedly, feeling guilty as I accepted it. Sean gestured in sign language, trying to explain something. But I caught him out of the corner of my right eye. I tightly grasped his hands, not wanting to complicate things. After Oscar left, Sean quietly looked at me. After a while, he took my hand and wrote in my palm, "Don't jump off the building, it will be a very ugly death, and it's hard to restore your appearance." I said, "Sean, your fees are so high, can't you even handle this little thing?" He wrote in my palm again, "Don't die, don't think too much." He added, "I haven't had any openings lately." I tilted my face up to look at him, and at that moment, another gust of wind came, blowing my hair back. I saw the reflection in Sean's eyes, the scar on my left cheek. I gasped. He saw it. I sighed and said with a bitter smile, "You saw it all, that's why I sought out the best embalmer. I don't want to carry the regrets and flaws of this life into the next. Perhaps Sir has contacted my parents. I have been unblocked. Perhaps it was the pain of international call charges, not wanting to waste it on me. They created a discussion group to collectively voice their condemnation of me. Dad, Tara, you little brat. It's been 3 days since I last punished you, hasn't it? You've embarrassed me all the way to the police station. Tara, Mom, Tara, you were such a good child when you were little, the most obedient one. Mom, why have you become so unruly now? If the child is not taught, it is the mother's fault, it's all my fault. Tara, oh. Elder brother, Mom, don't be sad. If I had known I would have a sister like Tara, I should have flushed her down the toilet when she was born. Elder brother, didn't you say you wouldn't bother us anymore? Why are you still not keeping your distance? Tara, all right. Clara, Mom, don't be sad anymore, and brother, don't be angry. It's all because I took away sister's affection that this happened. Tara, so speechless. Second brother, Tara, this matter isn't over. Second brother, jumping off a building to commit suicide, what the hell? You love to act so much, why don't you come join my crew? There's a beggar role that would suit you perfectly. Tara sent a picture of her giving the middle finger. Before the first voice message could finish playing, the next one popped up. I never expected that I would regain my family group in such a way. I leaned against the door and slowly slid down to the ground. I felt the scar on my face, and it began to ache uncontrollably. This scar is not only branded on my face, but also etched in my heart. When I was 7 years old, I was abducted by human traffickers. My parents and brothers searched for me frantically for a year, but found nothing. In the second year of spring, they adopted Clara from the orphanage. Because her eyes sparkle like mine when she smiles. After Clara arrived, they gradually emerged from the pain of losing me. Their feelings towards me transformed from guilt, regret, and longing into a subtle awkwardness. Especially when someone points at them and says, "It was this family that lost their little daughter." No one likes to owe others all the time. Especially since the daughter in their hearts, the sister has been perfectly replaced by Clara. In the 3rd month, they forgot my voice. In the 13th month, they blurred my appearance. In the 3rd year, they no longer remembered my name. Tara, what was it again? Oh, Tara. I was taken to a mountain village, eating leftovers, doing farm work, and living in a sheep pen. Because no one spoke to me, I couldn't even speak fluently before I turned 10. I named the sheep in the pen. This is just Dad, this is Mom, that is Brother. They were killed for meat during the New Year, and I cried for a long time. Leaning against a withered old tree outside the sheep pen, I have endured through the long, painful times. I have always been afraid to forget my own name. I have always hoped to return to my mom, dad, and brother. I love you all, I miss you. But what about reality? On the first day, I joyfully returned home. They stood on the 2nd floor terrace, surrounded by a host of stars around Clara, looking down at me. I felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over my head, even in the heat of midsummer, I shivered. In their eyes, I am not as graceful and lovely, lively, and generous as the carefully raised Clara. A country bumpkin, clumsy and awkward, unworthy of the grand stage, has become the label attached to me. I spent a long time trying to correct it, to tear it away. Just when I thought everything would get better, a cup of boiling water arrived. They all believed I was deliberately playing the victim, to frame Clara. I was malicious, jealous, vying for attention, and deserved to ruin myself through my own cleverness. The voice message hadn't finished playing, and one by one, they exited the discussion group. The last message was text, sent by the elder brother. If I had known it would cause everyone so much pain, why did you come back in the first place? I briefly had half an hour with the family group, and in an instant, I was left all alone again. I buried my head in my knees and hugged them, gently rocking. Like countless sleepless nights in my childhood, comforting myself. Suddenly, someone poked my shoulder twice from behind. I looked back with tear-filled eyes, and it was Sean, who had come back. He had heard everything. Sean pressed his lips together, took my hand, and wrote with tears, "I'm sorry." I probably cried even harder. They have never said sorry, why do you have to say sorry? I wiped my tears and said to Sean, no need to make an appointment in advance. After a pause, I added, however, I want to add 5 more seats. Sean was startled, signing quickly, like a ninja in Naruto forming hand seals. I stopped crying and started laughing. I was just kidding, my money is only enough for me. They won't even give me money for treatment, convinced that I am vain and deceitful. Even the medicine I take is the least effective kind. He wrote on the ground with a branch, "Don't die, okay?" I asked him back, if I don't die, where will your business come from? How will you make money? He didn't reply to me, but instead, he raised his thumb and pressed it against my forehead. I've stamped you. The person who has been stamped must live on strongly, no matter what happens. I was in a daze. There are many who shout for me to die, but this is the first time I've encountered someone urging me to live. I asked Sean, your sign language is so good, thank you for that sentence, can you teach me how to say it? Sean pondered for a moment before gesturing to teach me. I mimicked his gestures, is it like this? He nodded, his ears slightly reddening. The next day, Sean invited me to go out for some fresh air. We ended up at the beauty counter in the mall. I was in the mood and said, I want to choose my own cosmetics. I don't want to share with others anymore. After all, it's reassuring to use what I picked myself. Sean tucked my hair behind my ear. The scar that was revealed startled the salesgirl. I instinctively lowered my head and covered my left cheek, as the laughter and hurt from those memories rushed in. Sean gently cupped my face, as if touching something fragile. He gazed into my eyes and finished my makeup. I felt his long fingers brush over my scar, and my eyelashes couldn't help but tremble. Looking at the perfect face in the mirror after applying makeup, I was lost in thought for a long time. It turns out I was supposed to look like this. I adjusted my emotions, winked at Sean, and joked, "So this is what I'll be like after I die, huh? Your skills aren't bad. No wonder you have 0 negative reviews. Even when I become a ghost, I will still give you a 5-star rating." After saying that, I signed, "Thank you, Tara?" My body stiffened, and a voice I knew all too well sounded behind me. Surprise, hesitation, and a hint of disgust. I turned around to see my older brother, Yale, walking towards me with a frown. How could he be here? Weren't they still abroad yesterday? Just from a silhouette, Yale instinctively called out to me, "Tara, what are you up to again?" When he got closer and saw my face, Yale was taken aback, forgetting the words he was about to say. After staring blankly for more than 10 seconds, he sneered and said, "Tara, didn't you have bone cancer? Aren't you planning to commit suicide? Yet you still have the mood to go shopping and put on makeup. Do you still have a conscience? You caused such a scene yesterday. Mom and Clara couldn't stop worrying about you, insisting you come back immediately, ruining the mood for the trip. What, you knew I was coming to the mall to buy a gift to make up for Clara, and you specifically came to annoy me? Can't you just not pretend for once?" Sean's expression darkened. I tried to pull him away, but Yale stopped us. He looked Sean up and down, his gaze finally settling on the hands that Sean and I were holding. Yale's expression changed, and he coldly scoffed, "You've really made something of yourself, Tara, dating all sorts of questionable boyfriends without letting the family know." I held back my tears. "When did you start treating me like family?" As soon as the words fell, Sean punched Yale in the left cheek. Yale refused to back down and wrestled with him. With a crash, half of the beauty store's counter was smashed, and the staff called the police. When Officer A came, he saw me and said, "It's you again. You don't have any thoughts of ending it all now, do you?" Yale got up from the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. "She's just pretending." Officer A frowned in displeasure and criticized him. "We have been handling cases for many years, we know better than you whether it's an act. Fighting and smashing someone else's place like this, all of you come back to the station with me." Along the way, I stayed close to Sean, concerned about how badly he was hurt. Yale stared at me with an inscrutable gaze all the way. When I first returned to the G family, I felt sorry for his hard work, always waiting in the hall with the lights on for him to come home. But now, I wouldn't even give him a glance. When I arrived at the station, my family had all gathered, looking at me with eyes full of disappointment and disgust. I was grateful that Sir was present. They were concerned about family shame being exposed, otherwise, I would have been besieged again. As long as both parties coordinate the compensation well in this situation, and with a good attitude of admitting fault, it's not a big deal. Clara brought a glass of water and said, "Sister, brother fought for you, you must be scared, drink some water to calm down." Ah. She accidentally tripped over a stack of files again, and water splashed onto my face. Fortunately, this time it was warm water, but I touched my face, and the makeup Sean had done for me was all smudged. My hands were covered in foundation, eyeliner, and concealer, looking quite messy. Oh no, how did I mess up the files I just organized? Officer A walked over, holding a document in his hand. "Tara, right? We just investigated your information and found out that you have cancer." Ah. Before Sir could finish speaking, Clara suddenly let out a sharp scream. She looked pale and was breathing rapidly. "Mom, my chest suddenly hurts so much." Dad, Mom, and my older brothers were extremely anxious and immediately drove her to the hospital. In an instant, it was just Sean and me left. The burn on half of my face is nothing compared to Clara's hand cut by the shards. My bone cancer is nothing compared to the pain in Clara's heart. I feel numb inside, but I can't help but tear up. Sean walked over and touched my hair. I gestured and said, "Thank you." He took my report. Frowning, he read it and was shocked, unable to regain his composure for a long time. Hey, Sean, it's me who has cancer, not you. Why do you look like you want to cry?" "I don't want to go home. Sean has been following me, asking if I want to go to his house." I smiled and said, "Sure. Thank you. After washing off the remnants of makeup from my face, I had no clothes to change into, so I could only put on Sean's shirt. Sean brought me a towel to dry my hair, his eyes downcast, too shy to look at me, his ears flushed red. I had just dried half of my hair when the phone rang again. The caller ID showed it was my second brother. It was the famous director Henry. I pressed my lips together and answered. Tara, you're not going home with this game of feigned indifference, are you? How can you be so cold-blooded? Clara is unwell, and you don't care at all? You have the ability to die outside, so don't ever come back to this home in this lifetime. Alright, then I'll die outside. I replied to him coldly. The person across from me was taken aback, only left with the sound of angry heavy breathing. You turned on the speakerphone. I raised my voice. Also, listen, it's not that you won't let me go back, but that I don't want to go back, do you hear me? It's me who doesn't want you anymore. After saying that, I hung up the phone. When I turned around, Sean was leaning against the door. I didn't know how long he had been listening. I lowered my head, not wanting him to see how I had just tried to be strong and ended up looking so pathetic with tears in my eyes. How embarrassing. Sean held me in his arms and wrote on my back, "Don't cry, do you want me to help you beat up your second brother too?" I nodded slightly, then shook my head. It's better not to, otherwise he might write you into the movie as the villain and get you cyberbullied. I changed the subject. Aren't you hot wearing long-sleeved pajamas even in summer, and usually long-sleeved white shirts? Sean suddenly tightened his embrace around me. After a long while, he let go of me and began to unbutton my pajamas. My pupils dilated, and I quickly covered my eyes. Do not look at indecency, do not look at indecency. Sean's chest trembled with a tingling sensation. He should have been laughing, but no sound came out. After he took off his jacket, he pulled my hand and wrote, "Be good, don't be afraid, open your eyes and look at me." I slowly opened my eyes, but what I saw was not the vibrant scene I had imagined. Sean's entire arm and back were covered in scars from burns. I suddenly understood why he had initially valued me so much, insisting on calling the police to find me even though he couldn't speak. I grasped his hand, trembling as I pressed it against my left cheek. Revealing our scars to each other is a far more intimate act than hugging or kissing. We are both monsters abandoned by the world. I am a withered, scentless begonia, and he is a butterfly with wings scorched by fire. I closed my eyes, tears falling onto his arm. I will never be afraid of you, just as you are not afraid of me. I decided to move out of the G family. When I went back to pack my things, I found that all my belongings had been thrown out. It's raining. They found me, standing on the second-floor terrace, just like the first time we met. Looking down at me from a height. Dad spoke up, "Oh, young lady, isn't it that you've grown some wings and have some backbone now, saying you won't come back?" Mom said, "Tara, apologize to Dad and your brother, come back." Second brother coldly replied, "Mom, don't be soft-hearted, she doesn't deserve it." "Tara, you really look like a stray dog." The rain grew heavier as I picked through the items one by one, getting soaked. My change of clothes, clean ones, I'll take this. A family photo, I hesitated and skipped over it. The gift my older brother had given me, which I hadn't had the heart to open, I don't want it anymore. The rain above suddenly stopped. I looked up. It was Sean who had come over to hold the umbrella for me. "Sean, why is it that every time I see you, it's when I'm at my most awkward?" Clara, who had been silent until now, saw Sean, her eyes lit up, and ran downstairs. She blushed and asked, "Excuse me, are you the famous makeup artist Sean from the internet?" Clara said she wanted to pull Sean's arm. The next second, she screamed in shock. "Ah ah ah." Sean held the umbrella to shield me from the rain, his white shirt soaked and clinging to his skin. The large scars showed through, startling Clara into a scream. Mom and Dad immediately went downstairs following the sound, softly comforting her. It was Yale, who looked at me a couple more times. Sean's gaze was extremely cold as he glanced at them, taking me by the arm and leading me away step by step. Sean wrote on the paper, "Tara, do you want to live with me?" I rested my chin on my hand and looked at him, pretending to think it over. I really felt a bit moved. His fountain pen lingered on the paper for a long time, the ink diffusing into a black dot. It was as if she had made up her mind, pretending to be relaxed as she wrote, "This way, when the day you leave comes, I can give you the best makeup in time." Sean forced a smile, but I felt he was about to cry. I blinked. "Sean, living with you, I won't have to be with your guests, right?" Sean's eyes widened, and he hurriedly waved his hand. I laughed so hard my stomach hurt, leaning over the table. "Ha ha ha, I was just kidding. I'm fine, so don't be sad for me." "Thank you." A week later was Clara's birthday. I had planned to pretend I didn't know and not go back. But Yale drove directly to block my way and took me back. I struggled in the back seat, feeling a bit broken. Didn't they all say they didn't want to see me? Why did they still call me back? Yale said lightly, "It's Clara's birthday today, a day for family reunion, so don't make a fuss." I was so angry that I almost laughed, my eyes were red. Clara's birthday is a big celebration, but what about me? Does anyone remember my birthday? Yale fell silent. Dad's birthday is February 18th, Mom's is April 6th, your birthday is May 17th, my second brother's birthday is July 29th, Clara's birthday is today, September 3rd. Ha ha ha, how funny, I remember all of your birthdays. Yet not a single person remembers mine. Yale's expression was one of shock, and he instinctively said, "No. We have come to this point because of your own actions." I no longer struggled, collapsing softly onto the car seat, letting the tears flow. The pain started again. I once harbored a beautiful dream of becoming a family with them, carefully noting the little details of their lives. Even when they told me, "Clara has been living at home for 13 years, even if you come back, there is still her place in the house." I was not sad either, I was very happy, thinking I had gained another family member. I thought I finally had a home, a warm and solid home. A home that would spare me from shock, spare me from suffering, spare me from wandering, and spare me from having no branch to rely on. The pain of my first half of life, I will not mention, it is all erased. But I just want the love that should have belonged to me. Am I also at fault? Elder brother, don't be deceived by Tara. Have you forgotten about the bone cancer and the suicide? After all, she is the best at acting. Henry's voice came coldly from Yale's phone. It turned out that the two of them had been on the phone all along. It turned out that as I laid bare my heart, proving myself time and again, I was merely being overly sentimental in their eyes. I returned to the G family. The moment I stepped through the door, everyone in the living room froze, as if they had seen an uninvited guest. Because they had already finished dividing the cake, a total of 5 pieces. It was obvious that no one had their piece. Dad's face looked grim, and Mom looked at me, hesitating to say anything. Henry scoffed, "You really brought back this deadpan face, this broom spirit." To my surprise, Yale picked up his piece of cake and handed it to me. Clara was anxious, "Big brother, that was saved for you." "Huh, do I really care about your cake?" I looked at Yale and smiled slightly. His expression relaxed. The next second, I picked up the cake and slapped it onto Yale's face. "The child is dead, and you come to nurse it." Dad shouted in disappointment, "Tara, you wretched child. I really wish I had never had you as my daughter." Mom said with a crying tone, "Tara, why have you become like this? You have no manners at all." Henry's face darkened, his temples twitching, as he gritted his teeth and walked over. Just as he approached, I immediately grabbed the cake on Yale's face. With a loud smack, I replicated the action and smashed it onto his face. Clara had intended to come over, but upon seeing this, she quickly backed away. I looked around and suddenly felt it was absurd. My heart twitched, and I found it hard to breathe. Once upon a time, I followed your rules, being cautious and afraid to say the wrong thing or take a wrong step. But you said I was insincere and nauseating, unworthy of being your daughter or sister. All right, now I feel that you are not worthy of being my family anymore. This time I came back, just to tell you that I have moved my household registration away. I have my own household registration book, and I don't want you anymore. I felt a wave of darkness before my eyes, my face as pale as gold paper, and something crimson was flowing from my nostrils. Ding dong. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. Henry went to open the door, only to find that it was the officer from that day. In order to ensure the safety of citizens' lives, I wanted to submit this report to you at the police station that day. But you all left so quickly. Bone cancer is such a terminal illness. As long as suitable bone marrow is transplanted in the early stages, it's not a problem to hold on for another 3 to 5 years. The key is that you, as family members, need to cooperate with the patient's emotional treatment. Impossible. Henry instinctively denied it. She wasn't acting, was she? Henry hurriedly tore open the report, scanning it 10 lines at a time, and the more he read, the paler his face became. Dad, Mom, and my older brother were also drawn to this sudden change. Their faces turned pale after reading the report. Clara ran to the second floor and locked the bedroom door tightly. Mom screamed in tears, "Tara! How could you really have cancer? Why didn't you tell us? He said he wanted to come over and help me. Didn't I tell you? I told you from the very first day I found out. It's just that you all said there was nothing wrong with my report, that I was fabricating things, just to gain attention." My blood surged, and in the next moment, everything went black before my eyes, and I completely lost consciousness. I woke up in the hospital. 5 people were gathered around the bed. I couldn't be bothered to deal with them, and as I glanced around, I couldn't find Sean. Clara bit her lip and, after being pushed by Yale, finally said, "Sister, I'm sorry, I changed your cancer diagnosis report. My eyebrows and eyes are faint, I am not your sister. I have wanted to say this for a long time." Henry's eyes were dark with a hint of blue. "Tara, sister, this matter was indeed Clara's fault, but after all, we are family." I frowned in displeasure. "Who is your sister?" "Ugh, now I remember that we share the same blood." I paused. "Henry, since you changed the villain in the movie to my name and hinted at your fans cyberbullying me? Have you ever thought that I am your sister?" Henry showed a pained expression and closed his eyes. "I'm sorry, sister, I will make it up to you. I will immediately apologize to society." I'm almost laughing in anger. "Your fans dug up my social media account, hurled insults at me, humiliated me in various ways, and sent bloody images. You think a simple apology can make it all go away? And Henry, it's already this late, don't you have anything to say about my disfigurement?" Henry and Clara's expressions changed in unison. Henry is a very famous director. He often sets up a camera at home to gather inspiration. It just so happened that the day Clara splashed hot water on me, Henry was facing the malfunctioning camera in the living room. He put away the videotape and, along with others, accused me of being jealous and deliberately vying for Clara's favor. Even because Clara had cut her hand, she slapped the other side of my unhurt face. Henry finally lost his so-called persistence, bending his legs and kneeling heavily in front of my hospital bed. I looked at him with a gaze that held no warmth. "Henry, do you really know what it means to repent?" "Henry, Clara, you..." Mom let out an incredulous cry of despair. She could hardly imagine that her 2 children, whom she was so proud of, would do such a thing. She looked at me with sorrowful eyes. "Tara, it's because Mom didn't take good care of you. It was Mom who didn't care for you in time after you came back. Clearly you are my own daughter." I want to sneer, but I can't help but tear up. "It's too late, I'm already dying, Mom." She covered her face with her hands and collapsed onto my sickbed, crying bitterly. I silently avoided her gaze and locked eyes with my father, who had been silently smoking. Seeing his nearly empty pack of cigarettes, I frowned. "Why have you smoked so many?" Dad suddenly became excited, extinguished his cigarette, and tried to take my hand. "Tara, it was wrong of Dad in the past. That's great, you're still Dad's good daughter, right? Once, when I saw my dad smoking, I would always gently advise him against it, but I could only receive his cold glare in return. I kindly reminded him, "Didn't you say you would rather not have given birth to this burden?" "As you wished, I have moved my household registration, now I have my own household registration book." Dad's eyes turned red, looking like he was holding back his pain. "Tara, it was my fault. Please move your household registration back. We have always been a family." I am utterly exhausted. I pressed the nurse call button by the bedside. "These people are smoking in my room, get them all out." The nurse and they are at a standstill, arguing loudly. At that moment, Sean walked in. He couldn't speak, couldn't stand by my side to speak for me, he could only cover my ears. He didn't want me to hear those moral kidnappings and self-righteous confessions. Once the G family was pushed out of the ward, the world finally became quiet. I asked Sean, "Where did you just go?" Sean's eyes flashed, and he wrote, "Go get a bone marrow typing." My vocal cord removal surgery was also done at this hospital. He also wrote, "There are some things you can't say, but I can help you say them." I'm so useless, I can't help you retort. My heart raced, and I signed to him, "Thank you." Sean smiled too, gently leaning down in the warm sunlight, and pressed a sincere kiss on the corner of my lips. I can't help you talk back, but I can kiss you. To prevent being entangled by the G family again, I transferred to another hospital. Sean wanted to take me to a large hospital for chemotherapy. But I knew my physical condition, there was no compatible bone marrow, and with the delays in the early stages, conservative treatment was not very meaningful. Moreover, I didn't want to waste the little life I had left in the smell of disinfectant. I begged Sean for several nights, and he finally relented. Because of a wonderful movie, we went to the city of my dreams, Rome. It was also the place where Clara and the others went on the day I wanted to jump off a building. After the plane landed, looking at the exotic scenery, my mood was completely refreshed. Sean held my hand tightly. He was with me, loving me every second. The open square was bustling with tourists, and happy newlyweds were proposing. Sean went to buy feed for the pigeons, and a deaf flower boy approached me. I can't understand sign language, but from his rough gestures, I guess he wants me to buy a bouquet of flowers. Feeling the infectious atmosphere of happiness around me, I bought a bouquet of begonia flowers. I used the sign language that Sean taught me to say to him, "Thank you." The boy suddenly turned beet red, and he stammered as he wrote in the dirt with a stone, "Ma'am, this means I like you." In romantic Rome, saying this can be misunderstood. In an instant, the image of Sean's flushed earlobes and profile from that night flashed through my mind. Perhaps some things I once thought were unattainable, I have already obtained. When Sean bought the pigeon food and returned, the flock of pigeons flew around us. I handed him the flowers and signed to him, "I like you." Sean smiled with his eyes narrowed and gestured to me again. Then I leaned close to his ear and softly said, "I like you too." Sean's face suddenly turned red, and our lips drew closer and closer. The pigeons nearby took off in fright. After the flock scattered, 5 unexpected people appeared. "Tara, your health is not good. How can you casually go abroad?" Mom stepped forward, a bit reproachfully, and worriedly said, "We have already contacted the experts for you, to treat you when you return home. Let us spend more time with you." Dad interjected at the right moment. "I didn't expect they could chase me all the way here." I suddenly felt disappointed. Once upon a time, my birthday wish every year was to go to Rome with the one I loved. No one cared. Now that I no longer love them, they are rushing to me. Knowing that I am going to die, they have come in groups to seek my forgiveness. I just treated them the way they treated me, and that's unbearable? How ridiculous. I coldly tugged at the corner of my mouth. "After I die, you can go adopt another child. Then you can deceive yourselves again, dispelling the guilt in your hearts. After all, you are quite skilled at this, aren't you?" I let out a cold laugh. "There's no need to come before me and disgust me again, because I will never forgive you." My mother finally couldn't bear it any longer and began to cry loudly. Yale and Henry were trying to talk to Clara, but were blocked by Sean. Father lit one cigarette after another, but this time he wasn't so lucky. Because he carelessly discarded his cigarette butts, he ended up drinking foreign tea. Sean and I bought the fastest plane tickets back home. After fainting once again, Sean paused his work and moved the family next to the hospital. After waking up, I saw a shadowy figure lurking outside the hospital room, deliberately distracting Sean. Dad has looked much older these days, his hair completely white. He handed me an old photo album, and his aged voice echoed, "Tara, I clean your room every day, always flipping through the photos you didn't lose from your childhood. I've quit smoking now, will you come back?" I seemed to be unaware until he repeated it for the third time, and then I spoke up, "Sir, what exactly are you making a fuss about? All my things have been thrown out by you, whose room are you tidying up? This family has already fallen apart, are you happy now?" I threw the album onto the floor, and old photos scattered all over the ward. The caregiver said, "Please clean up this mess." No, Tara, these are the only photos Dad has left." He quickly crouched down to pick up the photos, his face pale, tears rolling down murky cheeks. Mom's eyes were red as she spoke, "Tara, your face, Mom has already found a way. The doctor has cut out a piece of skin from Clara's back that is the right size, and as long as you are willing, it can be transplanted to you right away." Ugh, so disgusting. My stomach instinctively churned with acid, and I retched. I don't want this, I'd rather bear a disfigured face than have Clara's skin transplant. Even when I'm dying, I still have to be tormented like this. It's revolting. Then Mom's can be transplanted to you. Tara, let Mom make it up to you properly. Mom will definitely think of a way. I dodged her hand that wanted to hug me. No, I can't take it. Henry, with half of his face bandaged, looked at me with a deep gaze. "Sister, I can finally understand how much pain you felt back then." He handed me the newspaper, and the news highlighted in red was, "The famous director Henry has suddenly withdrawn his hit movie, offending the investors and facing a bankruptcy crisis." He smiled faintly, "I have already recorded the apology interview, and I will restore your innocence." Henry said as he handed me a reel of the film, "These days, I've put all my energy into making this movie. The main characters are a pair of siblings, and I've named it Atonement. He looked at me with anticipation in his eyes. "This is a movie dedicated to you, belonging only to us." I didn't even look, I just broke the master tape in half and threw it out the window. "No." Henry's eyes widened in anger as he quickly ran downstairs to pick it up. "I will definitely fix it, I will definitely show you my sincerity, and make you forgive me." Yale beside him let out a thud and knelt heavily on the ground. "Sister, brother remembers your birthday now, and will never forget it for a lifetime." Yale's eyes were red, and he rolled up his sleeve to reveal a fresh tattoo, "My birthday." I was truly disgusted, grabbing the ashtray from the bedside table and throwing it in his direction. "Yale, do you think I can make it to my next birthday?" Yale did not dodge and took the hit head-on. "Sister, you can vent however you want. As long as you're willing to call me Big Brother again, I'll give you my life." The blood from Yale's face dripped onto the ground, and I suddenly laughed. "Yale, didn't you want to hear me call you brother? Lick it clean." Yale's expression stiffened. I secretly laughed. "Clara's hand was cut, do it just like you did then." Yale's expression changed several times, his gaze struggling as he looked at me. "Can you really call me brother again? Stop talking nonsense." Watching Yale clean up the blood on the floor, I cheerfully reminded him, "Yale, I forgot to tell you, the cleaning lady used the mop in the bathroom to save time when she mopped the floor this morning." Ugh. Yale rushed out of the ward, vomiting. Look, the so-called confession, the so-called guilt, is nothing but nauseating. And at the door of the ward stands Sean, who has been there for who knows how long. Sigh. I let out a breath. "You saw it all, right, Sean?" I lifted my face, trying to control the tears that were welling up. "I am not the pure, flawless victim you imagine needing to be saved. Perhaps you think I should forgive them. But I have my own fangs, and once I seize the opportunity, I will retaliate fiercely. On the day I jumped, I didn't actually want to die in front of them, to make them regret it. Instead, I wanted to take them all with me, like bowling. If you are going to leave me, when you go, please help me close the door to the ward. After saying this, I closed my eyes and, as if to escape, hid under the blanket. After a long silence, there was a sound of footsteps, gradually fading away. Thud. It was the sound of the ward door being closed. I was in tears, once again experiencing the feeling of being abandoned by the whole world at the age of 7. Without the fragrance of the begonia flowers, what right do I have to fantasize about butterflies taking notice of me? The next moment, my blanket was pulled back. A pair of strong arms lifted me, curled up into a ball, and held me tightly in an embrace. Sean gently stroked my back, as if soothing a child. I must have looked quite foolish, as Sean couldn't help but laugh after glancing at me. Weren't you leaving? As soon as I said it, I regretted it. Clearly, Sean had just gone to close the door and only wanted a hug. Sean rubbed my nose and wrote, "Don't be afraid, Tara, don't be afraid. You did the right thing. No one is qualified to forgive them for you, not even your past self. No one takes care of you, yet you take good care of yourself. Smart, strong, and brave. Yearning for love, yet able to leave decisively upon discovering that such love is trash." Sean touched my hair. "Our Tara, how wonderful." I stood there in a daze, as no one had ever said such things to me. These words, filled with loving energy, made me want to cry even more than if I had been wronged. Sean took my hand and wrote in my palm, "The only regret I have is that I didn't meet you sooner. I didn't teach you sooner how to bravely resist and how to love yourself." Sean told me that he had his vocal cords removed due to a fire 10 years ago. He became an undertaker, and his first client was his parents. While he was having a meal with his parents at a restaurant, a fire broke out due to the chef's improper handling. He was trapped under a beam, and his parents died in the explosion of a gas canister while trying to save him. In his agony, he shouted, "Dad, Mom," but was choked by the flying sparks, and from that moment on, he could no longer speak. But later that chef actually said he had elderly parents and young children, asking me to issue a letter of understanding. Some onlookers even advised me, saying the chef has it tough too. I hired the best lawyer, and until now, he is still locked up in prison. Tara, not forgiving is our right. Sean and I went to take wedding photos. It can serve as a keepsake. He personally did my makeup. After the photographer finished, he rented another set of equipment and a venue to take a set of wedding photos that belonged only to us. To capture the wounds we each laid bare. The set of photos has a strong artistic feel. I am facing away from the camera, and he is holding me from across. Our scars are hidden outside the lens, yet close within each other's breath. It's as if we have healed each other. I happily set it as my screensaver, then casually swiped away the 99+ messages from the family group I was forcefully added to. I am in pain in every joint of my bones now, and I can only rely on a wheelchair to go out. When Sean pushed me back to the car, he stopped at the trunk. He nervously opened the trunk, which was filled with carefully arranged flowers, balloons, ribbons, and a bright banner, "Tara, will you marry Sean?" When I turned around, Sean was kneeling on one knee, holding up the diamond ring, looking at me with devotion. This was his 9th proposal. I hung my head and still did not take the ring. The G family still haunts me relentlessly, disturbing my life. I heard that Clara was kicked out of the G family and is now called Cora. It is said that the G family's parents are dedicated to participating in charity activities for missing children. Others praise them for their compassionate hearts, and they smile while tears stream down their faces. I heard that Yale used his own blood to write my birthday all over the wall. I heard that Henry's Atonement won multiple awards, yet he stood on the podium crying silently. No matter what, I no longer care about these people and things that have nothing to do with me. Sean hired bodyguards for me, and they can't get close to me, just watching me from a distance. At the door, things I once said I wanted keep appearing: teddy bears, amusement park tickets, crystal headbands, cream cakes, and a copy of Anna Karenina. Happy families are all alike, every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. I had Sean throw them all away. The following spring, the crabapple tree we planted in the yard bloomed. This was its first bloom since being transplanted from the mountain village. Because of chemotherapy and the worsening of my condition, I lost a lot of weight, my chin became sharp, which made my eyes appear even larger. Sean picked a begonia flower and hung it by my ear. On the way to the Civil Affairs Bureau, I asked him again and again, "Are you not regretting it? Are you sure you want to marry someone who is about to die?" Sean repeatedly told me firmly in sign language, "I like you." With a stamp of bright red, Tara and Sean's names are side by side. I hold the marriage certificate, looking at the photo of the two people leaning against each other, still in a daze. I finally have a home. The G family was stopped by the bodyguards in the distance, weeping uncontrollably. They also realized that this was probably our last meeting. Finally understanding my determination, everything was irretrievable. On the way back, I felt surprisingly good. I had Sean take me to the square with the pigeons. The spring pigeons were lazy, pecking at the breadcrumbs in a casual manner. Sean half-squatted in front of my wheelchair, took off his coat, and covered me with it. I suddenly spoke up, "You know what, Sean? I can only leave half of my ashes to you." Sean's hand paused. I looked at him with gentle affection. I had always firmly intended to hire someone to scatter my ashes completely, with no more attachments. But when I met you, you appeared in my life like a miracle. The freedom and love I never dared to imagine before, I now have them all. So, I can only leave half of my ashes to you, left for love. The other half must be scattered into the sea, to pursue the freedom I have long sought in vain for over 20 years. Sean trembled, unable to cry out. Even in his deepest sorrow, he could not produce a sound, only the hoarse gasps of a trapped beast in his throat. Tears fell onto my skirt, only to vanish in an instant. I feel increasingly drowsy, wanting to have a good sleep. So, with my last bit of strength, I raised my thumb and pressed it gently on Sean's forehead, passing by his reddened eye sockets. "Sean, we have stamped it, the one who is stamped must live strongly." The begonia flowers by my ear fall to the ground. Sean trembled all over, his jaw clenched tightly, using all his strength. Tara, unable to make a second sound. I am a scentless begonia, swayed by the wind and broken by the rain, destined to bloom in solitude for a lifetime. Yet in the process of falling, I attracted the most beautiful butterfly, but that could not stop my descent. Sleep peacefully, Tara. This time, no one will disturb you again. Sean's hand paused. I looked at him with gentle affection. I had always firmly intended to hire someone to scatter my ashes completely, with no more attachments. But when I met you, you appeared in my life like a miracle. The freedom and love I never dared to imagine before, I now have them all. So, I can only leave half of my ashes to you, left for love. The other half must be scattered into the sea, to pursue the freedom I have long sought in vain for over 20 years. Sean trembled, unable to cry out. Even in his deepest sorrow, he could not produce a sound, only the hoarse gasps of a trapped beast in his throat. Tears fell onto my skirt, only to vanish in an instant. I feel increasingly drowsy, wanting to have a good sleep. So, with my last bit of strength, I raised my thumb and pressed it gently on Sean's forehead, passing by his reddened eye sockets. "Sean, we have stamped it, the person who is stamped must live strongly." The begonia flowers by my ear fall to the ground. Sean trembled all over, his jaw clenched tightly, using all his strength. Tara, unable to make a second sound. I am a scentless begonia, swayed by the wind and broken by the rain, destined to bloom in solitude for a lifetime. Yet in the process of falling, I attracted the most beautiful butterfly, but that could not stop my descent. Sleep peacefully, Tara. This time, no one will disturb you again.